So yes, today didn't start out as well as we expected. As you can see, we're under sail. We have no motor, as you'll remember, and very, very light winds. And we've still got 30 miles to get to Grenada before this storm that's on approach is scheduled to arrive.
Going light on us already. It's not even 9 o'clock, so hopefully it picks up again shortly. Okay, we're supposed to be arriving in Grenada, well, this afternoon, hopefully, but the day didn't start so well. We got up this morning on schedule, started getting systems prepped at 6:30, started the engine 6:45, ready for a 7 p.m. departure. I started it up, engine started up just as good as new, like always. Within 30 seconds, it chuffed to a halt. And I'm like, the hell was that? It never does that unless we're out of diesel fuel or something, but even then I know we just filled up, we got a full tank. I suspected power, I checked the batteries, everything was good there, but the starter wouldn't crank, it wouldn't crank over at all, it would just and lock. I'm like, that can't be good. So I first suspected, well, could we have run out of oil in the last run? Because when we got to the anchorage at Terrell Bay at Carriacou last night, the engine was running fine, it wasn't overheating, no noise, nothing. So I went and checked the oil and I pulled the dipstick out, and the dipstick, there was no oil, it was covered in oily water, like head to toe, it was just saturated. Tested it, tasted it, salt water. The entire engine oil bilge is filled to the top with salt water, and as soon as I started the engine this morning, of course it pumped it up through the system and it waterlocked the motor, just like that. So the motor is effectively seized right now with water. I can't turn it over, I can't do anything. So, we didn't have time to stay. I mean, we could stay in Carriacou, but there's no safe haven for us to escape this weather if it rolls in. I mean, there's one hurricane hole in there, but it won't handle our depth. We're over 6 feet, or we need 6 feet, and that was the maximum rating for the channel entrance, and to go in with no power, if we got stuck in the entrance while everybody else was trying to pile in behind us, would have been a very, very bad thing. So we couldn't afford to wait there. We decided to, I notified one of the neighbors, you know, we were having an issue, and I knew there was nobody around who was going to help me resolve that kind of an issue in a couple of hours. So we decided we had to set sail, even though we know the wind is going to die this afternoon. So we set sail and managed to just meander out of the anchorage at about 2 knots. We had to pull anchor, drift off on the mainsail, put out the jib to catch us, and then jibe, and then we headed around the point towards Grenada. So we got out okay, we didn't have any problems that way, got under sail, no big deal. It was very slow the first hour, averaging about 2.5 knots. Right now we're averaging about 4 knots, which is more reasonable. I'm hoping we can average 4 knots until we reach the side of Grenada, at which point the wind is supposed to die this afternoon, but regardless, the wind always dies when you're down the side of Grenada anyway. Unless you're 10 miles offshore, you're in the wind shadow of the island and there is no wind. So we expected that, but I expected, you know, we'd get to Grenada and then we'd motor up the last few hours and get to the marina. So we have no motor right now. So I've got us sailing, we're on autopilot, we have power at least, the solar panels are working, that's keeping everything running right now, so we don't have any issues there until after dark, which we should hopefully be at Grenada one way or another. I'm planning to get us in the lee of Grenada, and when we lose the wind and slow down less than a couple of knots, our fallback position is if we can't keep our speed up to at least 3 knots average, I'll bring the dinghy up, and we're going to bring the dinghy alongside the boat and tie it down hard from both ends so that it's pulling from the transom cleat at the back of the boat. And then we'll just put the dinghy, we'll lock it into place, we'll lock it in position, lock the wheel, put it in gear and forward, maybe 2/3 throttle, and I'm hoping that'll keep us going about 3.5, maybe 4 knots, I don't know, for as long as we have fuel in the dinghy. Again, we weren't able to get fuel in the dinghy because the last island we were at, there was no fill station, so we had to take jerry cans ashore, which we did several times, and we probably got about 6 or 7 gallons in the dinghy, which should be good for about 4, maybe 5 hours at half to 2/3 throttle. So we'll see. So that's how our day started. Let's hope it improves. It's no fun trying to talk over you. Yeah, you're loud. What's up, Tiki, huh? What's up, Tiki? Tiki gets very vocal when we're sailing. She starts playing and jumping around and going crazy. You think she'd get bored, just go to sleep, but no, she gets up and starts playing. Hey, Bum. Hey, Tiki, you being a good girl? Did I interrupt your playing, huh? Sorry. That's a good girl. So I tasted the water, because right now there's nothing but water coming out, and it's definitely salt water, so I have no idea where this came from. If it came in through the anti-siphon loop on the exhaust system, I don't know. But the boat was sitting flat calm last night. We weren't rocking around. It was running perfectly when we shut it off, so I've never had this issue with this engine before. I have no idea what to look for aside from that right now I need to get this salt water out of the engine, and as you can see, it's all water. I haven't even seen any oil yet. It's just straight salt water. Pure salt. Not good. I've already taken one bucket out. This is going to be the second bucket. I'm just going to have to keep going until it's all gone. Then the only thing I can think is, I can't even remember if I've got spare oil, because we just did an oil change. I may have used my last oil. Hopefully I've got some that I can put oil back in the engine if it doesn't keep taking on water. And then I'm just going to have to open up all my fuel injectors and see if I can bleed the water out of the top of the cylinders if it's actually hydrolocked on the top. I can't understand how water would get into the top of the cylinders, but if the engine won't even crank, I have to assume there's water in there somewhere. So we're going to have to open up and check that. Next thing, I'll check my rake core just to make sure, you know, there's no water in the fuel system as well, but right now, your guess is as good as mine. I'm just going to keep checking one thing at a time until we find out. All water, not even a trace of oil. Second bucket full. So it gets into the engine from the top and then down through the rings. And the only way to prevent that, if I have that problem right now and can't fix it, would be just to shut off the water inlet for the cooling line on the engine. Got it. Now you were saying to take out the fuel injectors and then try and rotate the engine by hand. Alright, so as you can see, we got all 4 injectors pulled out, disconnected. Those 2 are clean, but look at this one, that's totally covered in emulsified oil and water. This one's about halfway done. Turning pretty easy now. I'm going to give it a quick shot with the starter. Use your hands. Oh shit. Oops. One little half-second shot, look at that.
Oh,
Not good.
it's everywhere.
What we don't do for an engine. Okay, so this time we stuffed a towel in there and just held it down with the injectors so it can still vent, but that should catch any of the gas or anything coming out. So let's give it a try. Yeah, it's working. Okay, I think we're getting there. Alright, at least we don't have a seized motor. So it's spinning, so now we need to just clean off the injectors and put them back together.
So this scene, for some reason, the audio didn't work. We must have pulled the microphone jack when we were cleaning all the oil off the camera, which was not a lot of fun. But you get the general idea. We were pretty excited. We got it started, and even Sasha was so excited she fell off her chair.
I don't know about the rest of you guys, but after a job like that, always a cold beer is what's called for. I don't care if it's morning, noon, night. Right now it's about, I think, 1 o'clock, so it's a reasonable time anyway, but that was a fairly stressful situation, actually, and I'm very happy to get it running. As you can tell, the engine is running now. You can hear it in the background, I'm sure. Very happy about that. That's good. Not that I'm afraid to sail without an engine, you know, I've done that many times before. We've had engine problems and you just have to realize you go without it. Today, yeah, you just don't need that headache when 24 hours out there's some kind of storm coming at you, and now you've got 1 day to make it down to your final destination, and that's when your engine water locks? Really? Seriously? I mean, that's nasty. So, I know you guys, a lot of you guys probably could have fixed it just as easy as me. I'm sure you're just as, you know, logical thinking, intuitive, you know, you got to be able to analyze problems, think about them. It took me a couple hours. I sat down and just thought, okay, well, where did this problem come from? How did it start? Where did the water come from? First thing I needed to know, I knew I needed to get the water out of the engine. I mean, it was full of salt water. That can't be a good thing. So whether there's oil in it or not, you got to get the salt water out. So I got the salt water out and started from there. And then I realized, okay, it's still vapor locked. It's not starting. So we've obviously got water in the top of the engine. And that means that it had to come from the seawater cooling system somewhere because it was salt water. And it's, well, Gordy concurs. I mean, I talked to him and he gave me a couple of great ideas. You know, I probably would have got it running on my own eventually, but talking to a friend like Gordy at Simpson Bay Diesel up in St. Martin, I mean, it's really a godsend having somebody you can call when you've got a problem just to reinforce before you actually start taking apart your diesel. You know, you start taking apart head bolts and stuff like that, it's getting serious, so you got to be careful. And he's always been great. He's always had good suggestions, and I've always loved dealing with those guys. They did a good job for us in the summertime getting the whole system rebuilt, you know, the whole cooling system. But this is part of the exhaust system now, and that's something we never even thought to check. So there you go. We fixed and replaced everything but one thing, and that's what screws us up today. What are you gonna do? But to the rest of you guys, you know, you might be looking at it thinking, wow, take apart my diesel, fix the fuel injection system, and, you know, bleed out the cylinders? How are you gonna do that? You gotta realize, I know you're just sitting there thinking, yeah, I'd love to just sit there and live another day, you know, what do you call it? I know you guys are living the dream. If I had $1 for every time somebody sent me a comment, said, oh, Rick, just living the dream, right? But I'm telling you, you don't think about it until you really get your head buried in a job like that, and you got to get your, you know, you got to get it figured out. You got to fix it on your own. There is no service companies at sea. Nobody's going to come and fix it for you. You got to have tools on board, parts on board, everything that you need. You got to be your own electrician. You got to be plumber, mechanic, everything. You just got to know, and you have to learn it through experience. Even refrigeration. I have to fix my own refrigeration all the time. That's something that goes, and that can ruin your whole day if all your frozen stuff starts to thaw out. So that's something that I have to take into consideration all the time, and I keep all the service gear for that on board as well. But anyway, I'm not trying to lecture you guys, but just a note, you know, this is just hopefully the last test we're going to have on this part of the trip, and we're going to end up in Grenada in the next little while. We should be about 3 hours before we reach the marina, hopefully. But it's so lucky, it was good timing to get the engine actually running, because as you can see, we are just next to Grenada right now. And we were just behind Grenada, and the wind died, of course. So we were down to about 2 knots. And that's not looking good, you know, because you come below Grenada and then there's going to be no wind once you get behind that high mountain over there. It just dies off completely. Right now our sails are still full, which is great. But most of that is also because we're motoring and we're generating a lot of our own apparent wind. But if you can see this display, maybe you can, maybe you can't. I don't know. I know it flickers, it's bad, but we're still doing a comfortable 6.3 knots, and there's Grenada. Our destination is right down here. St. George's in the lagoon there. We're going into the marina, so that's our next stop. So again, hopefully that's the last test we have today. I'm going to keep checking the engine. I got to keep checking the oil levels to make sure it's not bringing in water. Supposedly it shouldn't bring in any water while the engine's running, because of course the exhaust is pumping the seawater out of the engine. So we just got to remember to shut the seacock off for the water cooling system coming into the boat when we shut the engine off. That's priority for today. So anyway, on with the adventure. Whew. Cheers for now. Relax and have a beer. Damn. Port Louis Marina, Port Louis Marina, Port Louis Marina. Sailing vessel Sophisticated Lady, 1-4, over.
Please proceed on to Marina PLE after landing by channel. Copy is coming in for
Copy part of that, head into the marina. We are set up with fenders on both sides and for a stern to dock, so we just have to put we can put our tender, our dinghy on the bow, over.
Roger, roger.
Okay, we'll have it tied to the bow, and we've got a line on the bow ready for a mooring ball, and 2 stern lines ready for dock tie, over. Okay, we'll stand by on 1-4. We'll call you as we get in closer. We're just coming through the entrance to the lagoon now, over.
Roger, roger. Cool. Cool, perfect. Perfect for me. Give me your line.
Il faut que tu prennes celui-là, là.
Tiens, you have line?
Tiens, viens. Hop. C'est bon? It's
If
for
your front
you.
line.
It's for you. Yes.
Good. Welcome to Grenada.
Off to a good start.
Just another day in paradise. Never a dull moment. What other cliches can we use?